Only a few of you will appreciate this reference, but when I was a kid, one of my favorite movies was The Mighty Ducks. And you don't really need to see the movie in order to understand what it's about because it's the typical sports movie. A band of misfits come together under the common goal of winning, and they ultimately succeed. In The Mighty Ducks, that success happens in a hockey rink in the middle of Minnesota in 1992. The Ducks are the worst team in the league, but then they become the best team. They win the championship. You've heard that same story before. It's Hoosiers. It's Remember the Titans. It's The Magnificent Seven. You've seen that movie a million times, and yet we'll keep watching that same story over and over and over. What is it about that kind of movie that speaks so deeply to us? There's a kind of gravity in the human heart that pulls us to be part of something bigger, to be part of something special. Now, you've probably heard this, but humanity is made for community. And you get that, right? You're sitting in a life group. You understand that. But what we may not understand is what happens to us when we don't have a community. Loneliness is a powerful thing. If we look at studies conducted among those living in solitary confinement, we see what happens to us when we lose everyone around us, even if those examples might be a bit extreme. But we lose our minds. We lose our purpose. We lose our desire to live. Without human interaction, we deteriorate over time. We need each other. For the health of our minds and our souls, we need to belong to something much bigger than us. Listen, the people who were reading 1 Peter for the first time, those people were dealing with loneliness. Peter calls them aliens and strangers because that's exactly what they were. They had nothing in common with the people in their neighborhood. And in fact, as we're going to see in later lessons, the people in their neighborhood were going out of their way to mistreat and persecute them. So it's essential for them to hear what Peter is telling them. And it's essential for us as well. Because in this letter, Peter tells us what it means to be the church. He tells us what it means to belong to the people of God. And for one thing, being part of the church means that we are strange. When Peter was a young man, he was with Jesus and his other disciples, and he witnessed something really embarrassing. In front of everybody, the mother of James and John went up to Jesus and asked him to give her two sons a job. More specifically, she asked Jesus if her two kids could serve as the right-hand and left-hand man in Jesus' kingdom. She wanted her babies to be the CFO and the COO of Heaven Incorporated. Could you imagine if that happened to you? Seriously, what if your mother walked up to your boss and asked for a job promotion? I personally cannot think of anything more embarrassing. But the two brothers, James and John, they confirmed what their mother asked. They wanted to be in charge. Now, Jesus, of course, was a gentleman about the whole situation, and he kindly explained to her that she had no idea what she was asking for. To be at Jesus' left and right hand didn't mean that you got to sit in a comfy seat in a corner office. It meant you would be crucified. Now that should have settled it, but the disciples were still a little irked with James and John that they would even ask for such a thing. And in particular, I think we can assume that Peter was especially furious. After all, Jesus told Peter that he was going to be the rock that the church was built upon. In fact, that's what the name Peter means. It means rock. So what were James and John thinking? That they could use their mom to swoop in and take his rightful place? Why would they think that they'd be in charge? That was Peter's job. But Jesus keeps talking and he points out that Peter's looking at things in the wrong way. He said, "You know that the rulers in this world lord it over people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many." In the kingdom of God, Jesus says, things are different. In the church, we must be different. We must be strange. And that makes sense because Jesus was strange. In a world of wickedness and depravity, Jesus chose to be holy. In a world of selfishness and pride, Jesus chose to sacrifice his life. When he had every right to just come out and say, hey, everybody, I'm the Son of God, and I'm the long-awaited Messiah, and I will accept your gifts and payments in the form of cash or check. Instead, he chose to live as a poor rabbi and to pour his life into 12 young guys. Jesus didn't go about his life like everyone else. He was different. He was strange. And as a church called to follow in the footsteps of Jesus, we too need to be okay with being strange. We have to be different from the world around us. And not just on the weekends at church where people can see us. I mean, every single day. At work, you need to resolve to be strange for Jesus. Because I don't know if this is true, but I'm willing to bet that every person where you work is looking out for number one, right? They're going to do what it takes to get that extra sale, to get that promotion, to look good in front of the boss, to aim for the office with the window. And sometimes they will throw you under the bus to do it. Now, when we see everyone acting this way, we're tempted to follow suit, be just like them. But not so with you, Jesus says. We don't act like everybody else. We don't look out for number one. We put others first. With your family and friends, you need to be different. The world says that your happiness comes first, and that if you aren't happy, you can choose to find it somewhere else. The world says that love is an emotion, and that when you don't feel it anymore, you can move on and find somewhere else. But not so with you, Jesus says. We're not like the world. We're not concerned with finding our own corner of happiness. We submit to one another, and we serve one another, and we put each other first. We don't go looking for love. We give love. We show love. And that might sound frustrating, but that's the reality to which God has called us. That's what it means to be the church. We're not supposed to be like the world. We're supposed to be like Jesus. To be the church means that we will be strange. And it also means that we are chosen. One of my favorite verses of all time is in this section. Seriously, it's 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, and it says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." Now, when we say that we are chosen, I think some misunderstand what that means. I don't mean it like a game of dodgeball where two kids go one by one and pick their teams. God isn't picking certain people to be on his team and picking other people to play on the losing side. That's not what chosen means. To be chosen by God means you have joined an effort to complete a specific mission. I'll explain. All of those terms you heard earlier, royal priesthood, holy nation, people belonging to God, that is not the first time they've been written in the Bible. Way back, hundreds of years before Peter wrote those words in ink, God spoke those words out loud to Israel. And you can read about it in Exodus 19 if you want to do your own study on it. But to give you the gist of the story, here it is. God rescues the Israelites from Egypt. He makes a dry path for them through the Red Sea, leads them to the wilderness, and brings them to a place called Mount Sinai. And there, God officially makes Israel his chosen nation. Now, there was a reason for all this. God didn't choose Israel just to be blessed by him, just to enjoy his blessings. He chose Israel to bless the entire world. God called Israel a kingdom of priests. Do you know what a priest does? He serves the people on behalf of God. Even more to the point, a priest represents God himself. The whole nation of Israel was chosen in order to serve and bless the world. Now, if you keep reading in the Old Testament, you'll find out that they weren't very good at doing that. In fact, only one Israelite fulfilled that mission, the man from Galilee named Jesus. But now Peter uses those exact words to describe the church. He's saying that the mission that belonged to Israel in the Old Testament now belongs to the church today. If you are the church, not just on the weekends, but every single day, then that means you have been selected for this mission to bless the world through Jesus. Like a band of knights, you have been given a quest to fulfill on behalf of your king. And the orders you have received are the same that Jesus gave his disciples: to go, to make disciples, to baptize, and to teach everything that Jesus has commanded us. The gospel isn't just meant for us. Jesus didn't just die for me. He didn't sacrifice his life so that I could just keep this good news all to myself, so that I could show up on Sundays and enjoy a nice sermon and sing some songs and go home and do whatever I want. He died to bless the world. He died to show us he loves us. He died to give us a living hope for an eternal future with him. He died to establish his kingdom and to allow us to live as citizens of that kingdom, a kingdom of priests, a holy nation, a people belonging to God. We have been chosen to share that message, that gospel. We've been chosen to tell as many people as possible what Christ has done for us. We've been chosen to baptize others into a new life. We've been chosen to pass down what Jesus taught us 2,000 years ago. But most of all, we've been chosen to make disciples, to help each other grow in God's truth. Our responsibility is to pour as much of ourselves as possible into God's church, to encourage each other, to help each other, to support each other, so that the church will grow and continue to bless the world through Jesus. That's our mission. That's what it means to be the church. To be strange, to be chosen, and to bless the world with a living hope through Jesus Christ.